Hello, Primary 6. Here we are for lesson 3 of how to write a narrative. Last week we looked at the key aspects of a narrative, and this week we're going to take special inspiration from this guy. That's right, Robert Burns, Scotland's very most famous and best storyteller. The reason we're doing that is because this week is his birthday, so it's Burns Night this week, so that is the reason for that. This lesson is going to focus on how we can take inspiration from Robert Burns to make an interesting character. This week we're going to mostly focus on how to create a character with lots of description, and we're going to take our description, as I said, from Robert Burns. Robert Burns, probably the most famous writer to ever have come from Scotland. He's so famous that some people even have pictures of him in their house. As we said, Robert or Rabbie Burns is one of Scotland's most famous people. He's renowned for his poetry mostly, but he also wrote lots of songs and stories. Part of the reason his stories are so popular is because he wrote about everyday things and he adds great description. Think about it. One of his most famous stories is about a mouse, and he's written another story about haggis. Robert Burns was brought up by his hard-working mother, who showed him the importance of being kind and compassionate from a young age. Burns's love for hard-working, good-natured women is very clear in some of his poems and songs. Many lassies appear in his work, and he usually has a kind word for them all. It's nearly Burns Night, and during Burns Night is when we celebrate Robert's birthday. Before this, it's tradition to have a toast to the lads and the lassies. This is usually a chance to celebrate what we love about the people in the room, but it's also an opportunity to poke fun and laugh. If Robert Burns was alive today, when he came to visit Dunbar Primary School, he might well have a wee story to tell about what he saw. Your job this week is to write a description of a character based upon a Dunbar pupil. Give your character great description. Boys, you must write about a girl, and girls, you try and write about a boy. Characters are what make stories. They make you fall in love with them, they make you laugh, they are what generates the emotion that makes a story from being okay to brilliant. Think about your favourite stories. It is the characters that make you love it. As we talked about, Robert Burns used lots of female characters in his stories. However, to have a good character, you need to be good at describing and building your character. We're going to have a look at the description of a warrior on the next slide. Have a think about what makes that a good description. After months of waiting for the warrior to save her, the Queen had finally given up hope of someone who could kill the wretched thing that roamed below. The very next evening, a beautiful, red-headed, emerald-eyed female approached the treehouse. She wore a bright shining armour that sparkled in the moonlight, with a sword that was heavier than her own body weight. Her hair had been braided, her face was plain, but none of these mattered, as she was there to defeat the unknown. The young warrior proclaimed, "I am Alexis, and I am here to defeat the beast." Meanwhile, on the other side of the deep, dark forest lay a terrifying and savage creature. It had huge bird-like wings that were covered in thick, jet-black feathers. However, some appeared blood-red in the night sky. This creature used its wings to travel long distances and search for unknowing prey. However, the Queen was what it really wanted. What do you think about that description? Do you think this is a story you would like to read? Can you picture Alexis in your head? What is good about this short descriptive story? Have a think. Is there things that you could take from this for your character? As we said, your task is not to write about a warrior this week. Your task is to write about a new pupil or a current pupil in your class. The point of this is to replicate what Burns does in his address to the lads and lasses. When we do this at a Burns supper, a lad will stand up and address the lasses in the room. Normally he'll tell them how pretty they look and how thankful they are for being there. However, we can have a bit of fun with this. What are the things that annoy you about the girls in your class, boys? Girls, what are the things that disgust you about the boys? This is your chance to get your own back. It doesn't need to rhyme, and it's not a poem. What we're looking for is you to add lots of description in a fun and humorous way. However, by the end, you need to bring it back to say why you're thankful that they're in your class. Let's have a look at the two examples. The girl story is told from the perspective of a boy in their class, and the girl story is told from the opposite perspective. Let's have a read. On the left-hand side is a story about Lucy. This is told from a boy in her class. Lucy just moved to Dunbar. She just joined my class. She looks as glamorous as a film star. Well, that's what we all thought until we saw her trying to eat her long stringy noodles at lunch. Sophisticated and stylish, flawless and elegant, she must take ages to get ready every morning. With her long, raven black hair always perfectly done, as if she's got a stylist at home. She always has the latest brands and trainers. I don't think she's realised that it's just over the top. It's Lock End P6. She's not in Milan Fashion Week. Lucy, who's obsessed with social media, is always dancing about. Insta, Snapchat, TikTok. She's always perfecting the renegade. Why can't she understand that it's her personality, not the filter, that makes her so unique? Earth to new girl, the boys don't care if your eyebrows are on fleek. Flouncing, she saunters around the playground with her little friends, giggling about the hidden inside jokes. It makes me and all the boys feel awkward. Girls are a mystery to us blokes. On the other hand, I do sit beside her in class. She does seem kind and she helps me when I get stuck. So I guess I'll give her a chance. I'm actually glad she's in my class, even if she is a girl. As we can see, the boy in this class thinks Lucy is pretty glamorous. Although there is things that annoy him about her. The fact she's always on social media, the fact that she eats her noodles disgustingly. But by the end of the story, it does sound like he's glad to have her in his class, even if she is a girl. Let's have a look now at the second story. So if you are a girl, this is an example of the story that you might write. This story is written by Lucy about the boys in her class. This story is slightly different in that she doesn't focus on one boy until near the end. My name is Lucy. I've just joined P6 at Dunbar. We were looking at P1 photos in class yesterday and I noticed something. The boys, they used to be cute. I don't know what happened to them. The rest of the girls and I were chatting and we decided we don't blame them. We pity them really. They probably can't help it, but the jokes they tell, I mean, really? We're not impressed. Do they engage their brains before they open their mouths? Complaining, grumbling, griping. They don't seem to want our help. They moan about our TikTok dances. But have they listened to themselves? Going on and on about Xbox or Fortnite. I remember when they did those dances. Is that not just the same? They don't seem to make the connection. It'll just make Mr. Cunningham complain. Don't get me started on Waltig. They always shout, "Last one!" They sprint like Usain Bolt from one end to the other. Their faces end up beetroot red, hair plastered to their faces with sweat. Yuck. Andy, who sits next to me in class, doesn't seem bad though. He lets me use his cool pens the other day. I guess that makes him alright. I know it sounds like I've been moaning about them, but I wouldn't want to be in a class without them. Not deep down. I guess they're fine. Okay, nice. Well, for boys. As you can see from this example, just like the previous one, Lucy starts off complaining about the boys, saying what she doesn't like about them, and then she turns it round in the end. What I would like you to notice from both of them though, is they're full of description. I think if you were to close your eyes and explain these stories to people who don't go to Lock End, that they would be able to picture exactly what their classes are like. But how have I managed to write stories full of description? Well, I've used something called exciting sentences. This is where your first task is going to come in. These are some exciting sentences which have been suggested to use in a narrative. Now, an exciting sentence is not something that you need to use all the time, but it's something that can help you make your writing exciting. It also is a great way to add lots of description easily. Have a look at the 10 examples. This doesn't mean that I've used all 10 examples in both stories, but I have used different ones in both. The way these sentences work is they have certain rules. For example, number 1 is a boy's sentence. That does not mean that it's about boys. It means simply that a sentence is separated into two parts using the word but, or, yet, so. For example, there seemed to be no way out of the dark cave, but was that a chink of light? Another example is a 2A sentence. This just means there's two pairs of adjectives together in a sentence. In the cold, frozen wasteland lived a lonely, miserable creature. Have a read of all 10 sentences. What I want you to do next is look at the two documents with the stories in and highlight the examples with the sentences you can find. What you should end up with is something that looks like this. As you can see, I've got both examples on my page. What I've done is I've highlighted the exciting sentences I can find and then label them. If we look at the story about Lucy, you can see there is a line highlighted in yellow. Sophisticated and stylish, flawless and elegant. This is an example of a two pairs sentence. There's two pairs of adjectives with and in between them. It's a good way to add 4 adjectives, 4 ambitious words, straight away. If we look at the story written by Lucy about Andy, we can see we have got a noun, which is Andy, then a who, which, or where sentence. All this means is you have a noun followed by the words who, which, or where. Andy, who sits next to me in class. That's the sentence. Again, it allows you to add punctuation and use nouns and verbs. It's a great way of achieving all your targets in an easy way. What I want you to do is go through both stories and highlight the different sentence types you can find. You won't find all 10 in both stories, and you might find that I've copied and used the same sentence more than once. Have a look and see how many you can find. Then have a think about how you could use these in your own story. Now you've looked at 2 good examples and why they're good, have a think about your own story. Where's it going to take place? The setting? Well, I asked you to write about a pupil at your school. So, the classroom, the playground, on the way to or from school. Maybe you just want to focus in on one lesson. The character. Is the character based on a friend? Is it based on someone in your class? Are they someone entirely new? You might not want to mention real names. Genre? Well, we're describing a character in this piece. You don't want to go off on some tangent about a ghost, because really what we're focusing on is the character. Remember, when you plan, use bullet points or notes. It's up to you how much detail you include. In the planning sheet, I have given you examples of exciting sentence types you might want to use in each part, but again, it's entirely up to you. This is what a good story will have in it. You need to understand who you're writing for and the purpose. The purpose is to describe a character. Therefore, if you're writing about the moon or going to Mars, have you really achieved what we're looking for here? Have you got an opening which grabs the reader's attention? This is what we talked about in the last lesson. Nobody's going to read the rest of your story if your first part is boring. With detail, describe the atmosphere, the setting and the characters. And this week, we're going to focus mostly on the characters. Use a variety of adjectives. Use action verbs. Use figurative language. These are all things you're going to achieve if you use exciting sentences. Some of you will do lots of exciting sentences, some of you will just do 1 or 2, and that's fine. Use punctuation. Again, this is a great way to use a complex punctuation is by using an exciting sentence. Finally, have a conclusion. Unlike the first week, where I said you could have an exciting conclusion, remember in this story, you need to bring it back to being thankful and glad for having the people in your class, even if they do disgusting things or sometimes upset you. There you are, Primary 6. I look forward to reading all about your amazing characters. Remember, the best characters make you feel something, and the easiest characters to write about are based on true life.